Welcome to Healthy and Wealthy Conversations, where we discuss everything that leads to health and wellness for your whole spirit, soul, mind, and body. Hi, and welcome to Healthy and Wealthy Conversations. I am your host, Casey Bell, and today's guest that I will be having a conversation with is Lois Hollis. Let's get the show started. So first, thank you for coming on Healthy and Wealthy Conversations, where I am deciding to have conversations about um, taking care of yourself, all of you, mind, spirit, soul. And you are an expert on shame and guilt, which is very important because you cannot start a healing process of the soul and the mind if you have shame and guilt. And so, unfortunately, we do live in a world where people place shame and guilt on people, and then they take that shame and guilt, and then they don't do what they need to do to get healed because they're have all the shame and guilt. So first, let's talk about you in the beginning. How did you first coming to the acknowledgement of shame and guilt and the negative side of it, and um, how did you get into this arena that you're in right now?
That's a loaded question, but I'll be simple. And there's a lot more on my website, but I'm going to be short because I'm 78. I could talk forever.
Okay.
But anyway, I was a very abused child, brain traumas, broken bones, broken jaw, broken C1, C2, 3. I had a near death experience, but I don't remember that until I'm 40. So somehow I was able to get along and do. And I created the first kidney dialysis unit in the country. And I did a lot of firsts. And I had 30 years of migraine headaches. I still don't understand how I was able to do that all. But as you know, if you don't handle your problems emotionally of the past, they come to your present. And they call that middle age. They have a name for it. So in my 40s, I became extremely depressed to the point of being suicidal, which was like so unlike me because I had three beautiful children and life was good. And I crashed down. And I went to therapy because I was suicidal. And the talk therapy did help. I wasn't as, deadly person, but I wasn't happy. It didn't bring me home. I was like a lot of people say, okay, I did this therapy, but I'm still not there. And so someone said, how do you handle shame? I go, oh my goodness, what an odd word. That's where I'm coming from 25 years ago. And through my own research, and, I'm able to get messages from spirit. And that's probably because of the near death experience. I was able to figure out that shame guilt is everything. So I was so happy because I didn't have to go to therapy for anxiety or depression or self-esteem or loving yourself. All I had to do was get rid of the negative, which is shame guilt energy. And I healed. I healed all my broken, well, I had therapies, of course, good doctors, but I healed and I got younger, even lost my gray hair. It was like, oh my goodness, this shame guilt is just really terrible. And then people came to me because they wanted to do what I was doing. And I did the same thing with them and they all got well, like quickly, like a couple sessions who have been in therapy for like 5 years. And that's how it started. And I knew that that was my mission now to change the focus of shame guilt. So, what I'm saying to you is we have the love energy that comes into us. And the love energy gives us what? Joy and peace, self esteem, confidence. We have passion, right?
Right.
But on the other side, we have negative energy. And it's all bottled up into one bubble. And it's called shame, guilt, energy. I didn't say emotion. I said shame, guilt, energy. So this is what I want to bring forth today is that If it's an outside force, we can kick it out. There's no positive sign to shame guilt. Like some people say, oh, shame is bad and guilt is good. We need to be moral. Hello, I don't need guilt to be moral. I do it because God wants me to do it, or I want to help you. I want to help people. It's a helping thing. So, like you say, and there's no positive, there's no healthy poison.
Right.
And shame guilt is a poison.
Well, I will say you definitely do not look your age. I would not have
We're
guessed you were
78.
78.
Yeah.
Yes. I think that's amazing. So
And
for
I
some,
was dying at 50.
oh,
I
okay.
was no way I could live past 50 because of my liver and kidneys not working because of all the drugs I took for the my headaches, and I was cold over like that with scoliosis, and my heart was leaky valve, and I had all these brain trauma. I could not go outside during the daytime. I could only go outside at night because of the brain traumas I had.
Oh, wow.
I know, so that's like severe. And today I'm roller dating with my grandsons. It's so
That's,
much fun.
yes. So,
And go ahead.
no, go ahead.
So shame guilt is an energy, and then once you realize it and you understand it, you don't have to live with it. People are told by our culture, doesn't matter what country you're in, you should be feel guilty, you should be humble, you should be forgiving. Well, forgiving that's a mixed word, but you have to be a victim.
Right.
You can't really tell people you're really good at your work. If you're an artist, I'm really good at working as an artist. You're not allowed to say that. Well, I try really hard to be good. We've been taught to downplay ourselves.
Right.
And and it isn't our mother or a father or a grandmother, or it's everybody, the Pope and the president and your senator and your teacher and your taxi cab driver. I mean, everybody puts you down. So you can't say it's their fault. And it's not your fault because you've been given the wrong information. That's my job. My job is to tell you it's different. Now, why do I say that? What happens to you when your computer gets a virus? Or rather, your computer. I mean, you go mad. But
Right.
what happens to your computer?
It depends. One thing is it could shut down. It could
It doesn't
not.
work.
Yeah, it could go off.
Everything, and the keyboard may not work, or the word may work, or the internet. It's all different. Like it's different for your computer and my computer. So it's hard to identify it. And what do? You get a virus removal program.
Right.
I'm offering a shame guilt removal program.
I see.
Okay.
I see.
That's
Yes,
what I'm all about.
definitely.
Okay. There is such a thing as a shame guilt removal program because we are a computer. We have ley lines, we have energy fields. So we are a computer. When the shame guilt negative energy comes into us by saying, oh, I'm so stupid, I can't do that, you're shaming yourself. Or somebody says, you're so stupid, why did you even try? It doesn't matter. We're a shame bucket. Okay. But we got to kick the bucket out of us. Okay. So shame affects our unconscious mind. Like we don't really think about it, do we? But we feel it. It's a deep, heavy feeling. Guilt is in our conscious mind. We always say, I'm guilty. I'm guilty. I should do this because I don't want to feel guilty. I can't get rid of this guilt. I buy a new coat. I buy a new shoes and I'll make myself happy, and it's not making you happy. So our culture has told us the wrong thing because shame guilt is the same, only it's in different places of our psyche. Now, I'm a nurse, and this is how the medical profession goes. If you have a virus in your brain, they call it meningitis. If you have the same virus in your stomach, they call it gastritis. If you have the same virus in your kidneys, they call it nephritis. If the same virus is in your liver, they call it cirrhosis. Okay, so that's how it gets confusing, but it's really good for billing purposes because you have to make money, and you can bill for cirrhosis or meningitis or gastritis or bursitis. Each one has a different label, but it confuses you because it's only the problem of a virus. It depends on where it's in your body.
Okay.
So the same thing about shame, guilt. And people, well, it's shame, but it's not guilt, but that confuses your brain. Oh, I have guilt, but I don't have any shame. Or I have shame, but people say, Lois, I can't get rid of this guilt I've been carrying for 4 years because I did something wrong. And I said, you will never get rid of the guilt until you get rid of the shame that's causing the guilt.
Right.
Now, what I offer to people is don't say shame, guilt. I can have remorse or regret because I did something that wasn't right. Like I said the wrong thing, or I did the wrong thing, or gave somebody the wrong information, or whatever. We're not perfect beings.
Right.
But we're not shameful beings.
Right.
Okay, now, if for some reason I couldn't come on the podcast, I wouldn't feel guilty. I'd say, oh, I'm so sorry. I regret that I can't do it. Something happened. So regret or remorse gives us the ability to move forward. So I would suggest people, instead of saying, I feel guilty about that, say, I feel regret, and I'm going to buy that person a donut. You know what I'm saying? You want to make amends because we're not perfect.
Right. Right.
And sometimes what happened to me was my computer went goofy a couple years ago, and I didn't get book orders. And I didn't get them for like 3 months. And I felt I'm so, it's not good for your image for people to wait 3 months for a book. So what I did was I mailed the book out free. I gave them their money back, and I said, I apologize for the wait. It was a computer error, and I would like to make it right. And they said, it's not necessary. I said, for me, it is. I want to make it right. So that's what I'm saying. Instead of feeling guilty about it, I had regret, and I offered a solution. So if the people listening today can hear me on that, don't go into guilt. Guilt is like going down a sore pipe. It doesn't work. It can only get worse. But if you say, I have regret, I have remorse, let me make it up to you. I'll take you out for dinner, or I'll take you to lunch, or, I'll give you $10 or something, whatever is. But did you see how it leads to a forgiveness or a friendship?
Right.
But guilt, what does guilt do?
It just plays in your mind over and over and over again, and it never ends.
You sit into a closet crying, and you're so afraid to even call the person that got injured, right? Like, oh my, I feel so guilty. Say, hi, I regret that you didn't get your book, but I'm going to give it to you free and a free session. And they go, oh, good. I'm so glad you didn't, that happened. I get a freebie out of it. So everybody's happy. So that's what I would like to entice people to use. It's our language, but it's not your fault. We've been taught from a kid to be that way.
Right. Well, I would definitely say using examples. We've been taught that if you do something wrong, there's no forgiveness. You're just in trouble, principal's office, prison, et cetera, et cetera. And one of the things I noticed in the Bible, for instance, when the disciples were going to heal people and they were not successful, they went to Jesus and said, what are we doing wrong? And he told them, you don't have faith in Holy Spirit. Now, he didn't, say you're going to hell. He didn't beat them. He just gave them, they asked what we were doing wrong, and he gave them a solution, and there was no guilt or shame. And unfortunately, in our
Exactly.
society, we don't have that conversation with our
No.
children. It's you're bad, go, you're punished, don't blah blah. We don't actually sit down and have a conversation and say, okay, why did you do this? And without fear and
And
anger and all of that. So we
and
grow up
also tell
thinking,
them, like, in the future, instead of doing this, you can do that. And that's okay. Now let's go out and go out and have dinner.
right,
Let's go out and have a party.
right,
Now, if they purposely flunk an exam and purposely don't study and purposely talk on the computer all the time, okay, that's another story. We can say, hey, wait a minute, guy, this ain't going right, but still it's no blame. But then you have to take precautions, but no punishment. You have to teach them another way.
right,
Punishment never solves anything.
right. It definitely gives you the mind to, when you become an adult, when you make a mistake, be too afraid to admit it, be too afraid to apologize, make up excuses or justifications. It doesn't really give us the mind to,
The
as you said,
tools to
solve the
use.
problem. As far
Right.
as, I am sorry, such and such happened, let me make it up to you. We don't have that mindset. We're just taught when you do something wrong, you're in trouble, and that's,
Right.
you
You
know,
get hit and spanked and put in a corner. But you and I, who aren't kids anymore, we still got kids inside of us, a 3-year-old and a 5-year-old, so we can reparent ourselves.
right,
Okay, so that's the second thing we can do. We are reparenting ourselves. Everybody needs to reparent themselves. I don't care who their parent was. The culture did it. If your parents didn't do it, it doesn't matter. So everybody needs reparenting. Some people need more than others, but everybody needs to reparent themselves. How do you do it? When things come up, you say, okay, that was that, and this is today. And instead of feeling guilty, I'm going to, work at a community center for a couple days, or I'm going to do this. But I don't guilt. Do you remember the Wizard of Oz movie?
mm-hmm. Yes,
Okay. Remember Dorothy's walking up the yellow brick road and, oh, I'm going to see the wizard. I'm so scared. I'm so frightened. And then the doggy, Toto, pulls the curtain back. And she sees an old man with horns and smoke and guns. It's a big joke. Shame guilt is the joke placed upon humanity, okay? Now you can picture anything in your mind. My new film, I'm Good Film, shows you what shame guilt looks like. So people can see a visual of what it looks like. It's a joke. We all have been deceived. So instead of feeling shame guilt, you laugh, because shame guilt only has one problem. It dissolves in detection.
okay. Elaborate on that.
So that's why I'm an educator. I have to teach people what shame guilt behavior is, because we don't know. We've been taught to do shame guilt behaviors. So that's what I do. I help people to learn what shame guilt is. And when people shame you, you go, that's interesting, and walk away. You don't accept it. You don't fight. Like, oh, that, you don't get all defensive. You just say, that's interesting, bye. Like water off a duck's back, You don't take it on. Now, I'm talking for 30 minutes, but obviously this is a great big subject. And you can always go on my website and learn more. But today, let's learn that shame, guilt is together as one energy, and it doesn't belong to you.
Right. So,
And your inner critic is your best friend. That's a whole nother story. We can talk about the inner critic and how you can work with your inner critic and be your best friend. Now, that's a new concept.
all right, I guess I will leave that for you, for people to get a consultation with you where you can
Yeah,
discuss that so what the first step you would give someone or advice you give someone who, because some guilt is like 2 days old and some guilt is like 40 years
20
old.
years old.
Yeah,
20
40
years old.
years old.
Yeah.
So that person who just, and whether they've been to therapy, they just can't seem to let it go. What would you tell that person who's still holding on to something from
Okay.
shame and or guilt for a very long
Well,
period of time?
well, shame, guilt is the same thing. It's the same thing. We have to get that straight in our mind. Shame, there's no good guilt and there's no good shame. There's only bad shame and bad guilt. There's no healthy poison. If it's 100% bad, it's not good. Okay, that's step number one. So, okay, I feel guilt about this. I feel shame about this. Okay, now Lois says that it doesn't belong to us and I can kick it out. Okay, if I kick it out, what do I feel? I just feel sad. I feel depressed. Okay, you work with that emotion. Say, hi, depression. Thank you for coming to see me. What do you have to say to me? Then we got a way of healing ourselves. We got out of the hole of shame, guilt. And you can be depressed and you can be sad. That's okay. And you can talk to your depression. I have a film on that and teach people, teach people how to talk to their emotions. But then you got something to work on. You can't work on guilt. If you keep saying, I don't know why I feel guilty and I shouldn't have done that, and that's a loop that makes you go down, and that's how people commit suicide. It's so sad. There's no hope. There's no hope. And if you can't do that yourself, hopefully you have a friend. I got people paired together, shame guilt buddies. Like we could be buddies, and I could call you and say, I'm really in the hole and I can't get out. I can't get out. So you'll help me out. You don't have to have a degree. This is self-help. You just talk to me like I'm talking to you, and you help bring out the other parts of yourself. Sometimes you can't do that yourself, okay? And I want people to know that. So you call your best friend. We should always have at least one best friend, or your husband or your wife or somebody, because you need that person to get you out of the hole. And if you can't, call me, I'll help you. Because you got to get out of the hole. And
Right.
then once you get out of the hole, you can talk to depression, anxiety. So that's what I would like to leave people with. Shame guilt is a magician. But once you discover it, it disappears because the jig is up. It's a trickster. Okay? It
Right.
only activates the emotions. It's like an energy that comes into a computer and makes it all go bad. You don't see the computer virus, but you see what it did.
Right. Right.
So you can't see the shame guilt or anger. I can see it, but you can't see it, but you can see what it does to your body. And
Yes.
the more focus you put on it, the worse it gets. Like the more time you spend with somebody, you know them more. You don't want to spend time with shame guilt. Just check it out and say, okay, I can talk to my depression. I can talk to my anxiety. And if I can, I'm going to call my friend Charles and he'll get me out of the hole.
Right.
And that's, I'm giving you the first steps. And there's a little bit more, but we have to get to base one. Know that it's energy put upon us. It doesn't belong to us. And since Adam and Eve, we've been dealing with this victimhood, only it's gotten worse.
Right.
God did not make victims.
Right. Right. So you've given us so much great word and great advice. I just want to mention one last thing. So when I was dealing with shame and guilt, one of the things God told me to do is to remember whatever you sow, that's what you reap. And one of the things I had to learn to stop doing, not just personally, something on the news, something on social media, we have a habit of going, that's a shame, they should be ashamed, putting guilt on people. And one of the things I had to realize is that if there's a problem, whether it's a lawsuit or whatever, if you cannot help the problem, as far as you can't be a witness in the situation, you can't be a lawyer, you can't give the money to get a lawyer, there's really nothing you should say, because in that moment in time, whatever is happening, molestation, sexual assault, murder, they need a solution. And if you're not going to be a part of the solution, definitely don't be a part of the problem by adding your shame and guilt. So I had to learn how to stop putting shame and guilt on people, both personally and in the public. And so for me, I just had to remember, whatever you sow, that's what you reap. So if you're going to sow shame and guilt onto people, you're going to receive it at some point. And if you don't like receiving it from people, then don't give it. What is advice you would give to people who are constantly sowing that type of weeds? I call it weeds instead of plants and flowers.
Well, it's probably their inner critic. You think you're in charge of your life. No, you're not. Your inner critic's in charge of your thoughts. So when you have a problem with the product, you go to the guy that cleans the floor or the president?
President.
You go to the president. So if you want to have positive thoughts, you talk to the guy that's making the thoughts, and that's your inner critic. And my film teaches you how to talk to your inner critic. He's your best friend. Only he was trained by culture, not by God.
Right.
That's all. Oh, it's all there is. Now, my inner critic, who's called King, has changed his job. Instead of putting me down as a victim, he goes around the world finding wonderful podcasts like you. He's got a new job, and we're all happy.
Awesome. Well, thank you. Is there any lasting you'd like to tell the listeners on shame and guilt and how to free themselves of it?
Shame, guilt is not ours to own or to give. That's it.
That is all the time that we have today for Healthy and Wealthy Conversations. Thank you, Lois Hollis, for sharing. You were amazing, and I just enjoyed everything that you shared. And audience, I hope you learned from this, and I really hope you learn how to get rid of shame and guilt immediately. It's not going to help your life. And thank you again for watching, audience. Have yourself a great day.